ATMs hold cash. That's attractive to criminals all over the world. And then cyber criminals found a weakness in the cash machine which caused it to spit all of its money out at an allotted time and place. And that got named jackpotting.
Wow.
Carbanak was a game changer.
Is there anything we can do about this attack? Nothing!
They just need to be lucky. One day, 1 second, and they are in.
They're kind of like ghosts, sneaking in the country and then sneaking out.
At that moment, we need to find the money.
Just squash it.
Я не знаю.
Well, you cannot just take out Don Corleone.
It's very hard to arrest a piece of code.
It was 3 o'clock in the night, and on the other side of the phone there was this guy who was kind of stressed out, and he said, "Get your ass over here because, you know, some shit is going on."
In 2013, I was the head of the European Cybercrime Center. I was told by Eugene Kaspersky, and he said, "Troels, we have come across a very, very odd case that seems to be extremely big. An attack on a financial institution that has lost huge amounts of money."
ATMs hold cash. That's attractive to criminals all over the world.
Suddenly all your ATMs are empty. You know that something had happened.
Welcome. This is our ATMs. Let me show you. The guy, he was just walking around, didn't touch anything. He just took his big backpack and started to just grab all the money from the ATM. Wow, genius! Yeah, genius!
The first time I heard about ATM attacks was like most people, it was Barnaby Jack.
Barnaby Jack.
Like, who's called Barnaby Jack? He was really one of the top researchers out there, raising awareness that, you know, this device just doesn't work the way the manufacturer says. He was always finding vulnerabilities in places that no one else had looked yet.
I think if anybody in the security industry, you know, Barnaby had the most amazing mix of not only the technical chops to back everything up, but he also had this showmanship of being able to deliver it and get people to pay attention.
All right.
I remember we were at a barbecue and we were joking about, you know, what would be something super cool to hack, and Barnes was like, "Oh man, an ATM would be great, like I hate my bar tabs." The first practical issue for Barnes in doing ATM hacking was just literally figuring out how do you buy a used ATM, how do you get it there, and once he had the ATM, then it was just living and breathing, staying up every night, trying to figure out, you know, take it apart, reverse engineer it.
The most important attack is the remote attack.
You could exploit a cash machine and get it to spit money out, and that method got named jackpotting, ATM jackpotting.
For myself, it was about 8 months of fairly constant work, but I'm not naive enough to think that I'm the only person who could do this.
By doing those demonstrations that the machine could be hacked, you can have copycats.
At the moment, we haven't seen any of these exploits replicated, but it's certainly possible.
It's really a double-edged sword, right? It could be used for good, it could be used for evil.
Carbanak was a game changer, I think.
It was the first time we saw an attempt to remotely access banks' networks for the purposes of extracting very, very large sums of money.
When you think about hackers, you think about maybe your neighbor, your kid, somebody from high school. That's not the case here. These were really professionals.
The sophistication of a number of the groups starts to edge on a nation-state level.
It's just like a fully developed piece of software that can be used to record the active screen of a computer. So you get an idea of how the banks can be working and what also you need to do if you want to extract the money from the bank. So we thought, like, could it be that these guys are watching what we're doing? So then we opened up this Word document and we wrote in Russian like hello. And then we waited a little bit and we waited a little bit and then somebody else was writing like hello. And so at that point we knew that they were watching what we were doing.
Cybercrime is global. So the nature of cybercrime is that you cannot border yourself out of this. I said we need to do something in the European Union, and I called for a operational meeting.
So we were there in a room much smaller than this one, and it was fully packed with all these important people from all the big banks.
And then we presented this Russian expert, and he was very Russian, and he was very nerdy. What he told us could be very embarrassing for these banks. During this explanation, I've never seen security guys making so many notes.
And I was sitting at the back and Golovanov was presenting the story about Carbanak, about how they work. The more technical it got, and also the more enthusiastic he got, the more nervous the people in the room became. And at one point, one of the guys asked this question, like, okay, but Sergey, is there anything we can do about this attack? And then he said, like, really happy, like, nothing! And then you saw all these people in the bank, like, oh my God, like, what should we do? In general, what happens with cybercrime, things usually start in Russia and after a while they move to other parts of the world.
They just need to be lucky one day, 1 second, and they are in.
Over 70 million NT dollars was withdrawn illegally.
And the report coming about ATM machines churning out money. You know, is it some kind of magic or strange thing is happening? And the people starting realize this is a really big crime.